The scent of burnt sugar and old sea salt clung to the air in the port district, a smell that meant money, fear, and Cale Donovan. Cale, known on the docks as Ghost, stood overlooking his territory from the grimy window of a repurposed warehouse office. He was the undisputed leader of the Tidebound, a collective controlling everything that moved on and off the cargo ships, legal or otherwise. He was power, distilled into 6 feet of coiled muscle and a gaze that could freeze the Adriatic. But now, Cale was facing a crisis that steel and intimidation couldn't solve. He turned from the window to the corner of the room, where a small, thin boy sat huddled beneath a blanket, the very picture of frailty. Liam was 7 years old, but looked 5, his eyes too big for his gaunt face haunted by something Cale had witnessed firsthand, the end of innocence at the hands of traffickers. Cale had paid a fortune and risked a war to pull Liam out of that black hole, only to find he couldn't pull the trauma out of the boy. For 2 weeks, Liam hadn't truly eaten. He'd pushed the expensive meals, the grilled salmon, the gourmet mac and cheese, the fruit bowls Cale's men brought in for him. The child's defiance wasn't rage, it was silence, a total rejection of the world Cale was trying to build around him. Liam, the rescued soul, was starving himself in the safety Cale had bled for. Cale knelt, forcing the cold command out of his voice, leaving only raw, paternal concern. "Liam, little fighter, you need to eat. Look, chicken soup, just a spoon." Liam didn't move. He barely seemed to breathe. Frustration, a feeling Cale rarely tolerated, tightened his jaw. He was Ghost, a man who ran a multi-million-dollar operation, a man who gave orders, not pleas. Yet, here he was, begging a 7-year-old for compliance. The sight of his own helplessness was a worse wound than any bullet. "Go, clear out!" Cale snapped at his 2 guards, who were pretending to study the floorboards. When they were gone, Cale ran a heavy hand over his shaved head, his gaze settling on a small, worn photograph tucked into his desk frame, the laughing face of a young woman. "Mia, you would know what to do." He stood up, pacing the warehouse floor. Liam needed more than just expensive food. He needed something real, something that wasn't touched by the rust and the shadows of Cale's world. His gaze fell out the window again, down to the edge of the dockland ends where the steel, concrete, and grime gave way to a splash of defiant color. A brightly painted food truck. It was absurdly out of place. It had a hand-painted sign that read, "Maya's Comfort Kitchen." Cale knew the truck. It served meals to the port workers, mostly immigrants and the homeless kids Cale's crew tolerated. Cale also knew the owner, Maya Liu. She was the one anomaly in his territory, the one person who refused to pay him protection, citing only, "My food protects itself." His men had laughed. Cale hadn't. He had seen the way the roughest dock workers softened around her, the way the homeless kids lined up and were treated with genuine, non-patronizing respect. Cale hated the light she brought, the vulnerability she represented, but she was the only untouched thing nearby. He looked at Liam, then at the rejected soup bowl. He made a decision, a dangerous gamble that went against every rule of his empire. Liam's survival was the only rule that mattered now. "Get me my coat, and send 2 perimeter teams out. Nobody, and I mean nobody, sees the boy," Cale commanded into his headset, the Ghost reasserting control, not over the port, but over his fear. He picked up Liam, wrapping the boy tightly in the blanket. He carried Liam out of the steel fortress, through the guarded alleyways, the boy silent and still in his arms, the sight utterly foreign to his crew. Cale didn't care about their stares. He walked with purpose toward the bright, absurd beacon of the food truck, his black trench coat and grim demeanor clashing violently with the warm glow emanating from Maya's little kitchen. He stopped 10 feet from the service window, the powerful leader of the tide-bound, now just a desperate father. Maya Lu was stirring a massive pot of tomato soup, the steam clouding her protective glasses. But her movements were practiced and calm. Her small food truck, Comfort Kitchen, was her fortress, a place where the rules of the port dissolved into the shared language of good food. She dealt in hunger and warmth, not violence and control. She heard the silence before she saw the cause. The usual background noise of the docks, shouting, clanging, engine rumble, had abruptly stopped. The line of dock workers dissolved, scattering like pigeons. Maya looked up and saw the ghost. Cale Donovan was a myth, but his presence was brutally real. He was massive, dangerous, and stood radiating cold intensity. His expensive coat and lethal aura completely alien against her colorful, welcoming truck. And in his arms, bundled tightly, was a child. Maya didn't recognize the boy, but she recognized the universal sign of distress. She calmly lowered her spoon. "We're not closed, Mr. Donovan, but I only accept cash. No markers, no intimidation." Kyle didn't acknowledge the threat. His eyes, the cold gray of a stormy ocean, were fixed on her. "My son, he won't eat. He hasn't eaten properly in 2 weeks." Maya raised a single eyebrow. "And you brought him to a food truck?" "I'm not a doctor, Mr. Donovan." "You sell comfort, Ms. Lu," Cale said, his voice a low, gravelly sound that always carried a hint of warning. "He needs comfort. I can't give it to him." The admission was the most vulnerable thing Cale Donovan had ever uttered in his life. It was a crack in the armor big enough to expose his heart. Maya studied the boy. Liam was tiny, rigid, his small fists clenched inside the blanket. He looked away from Cale, away from the guards lurking in the shadows, but his eyes kept drifting toward the bright glow of the truck's interior and the warmth pouring from the windows. "I don't serve your kind of business, Cale," Maya said softly, using his given name intentionally. "My business ends where your kitchen begins," Cale stated, the gravity of the implied threat hanging in the air. "I protect this area. I need you to protect him." Maya looked at Liam, then back at Cale, understanding dawning. This wasn't a transaction. It was a surrender. The man who owned the docks was kneeling before a barista. "He doesn't need steak or lobster, Cale. He needs food that hasn't been touched by fear. He needs food made with love," Maya whispered, the words hitting Cale like a physical blow. What was his last memory of safe food? Cale looked lost. I don't know. The doctors said his stomach is closed from stress." "Then we start with nothing," Maya said, turning and reaching for a small, simple bowl. She didn't offer a menu. She only offered what she instinctively knew a traumatized child needed: bland, simple, nurturing. She came back with a bowl of plain white rice porridge, slightly sweetened, served lukewarm. She set it on the small counter space. "Liam," she said gently, never touching him, just speaking to his fragile soul. "This rice is magic. It only likes kind people. It hates bad memories. If you eat it, it will tell your tummy that everything is quiet outside. Just one spoonful, little fighter." Liam's head turned slightly. He stared at the bowl. He looked at Maya's gentle face, her kind eyes, framed by the steam and light, then at Cale's desperate one. Slowly, his small hand slipped out of the blanket. He reached for the bowl, his fingers brushing the ceramic edge. Kale held his breath, the tension in his body tighter than any gunfight. Liam picked up a tiny wooden spoon. He hesitated. Then, with a shuddering intake of air, he put the smallest bit of porridge into his mouth. He chewed. He swallowed. And he reached for another spoon. The relief that washed over Cale Donovan was so profound, it almost buckled his knees. He realized he was seeing his son eat for the first time since he'd rescued him. He was seeing Liam choose life. "I need you," Cale said, the words echoing his helplessness. "Whatever you want. I need you to do that again. Every day." Maya stood firm. "I don't take money for a child's healing, Cale. This is not a service. If I do this, it's on my terms." Kyle, seeing his son finish the entire bowl of porridge, would have agreed to burn his empire down. "Name them." "First," Maya began, her voice steady, "the protection money issue is settled for good. Second, you stop sending those shadows, your men, near my truck. They scare the children I feed. Third, I only cook if Liam comes here. He needs to choose the safe space, not be confined to yours. And fourth, I don't work for you. I cook for Liam. You stay out of the kitchen." Kael's gray eyes narrowed, weighing the audacity. She was asking him to compromise security, pride, and control, the three pillars of his survival. But Liam was now looking at Maya with a hint of curiosity, not fear. "Agreed," Kael clipped out, the word painful to speak. "But I won't be out of the kitchen. I will be here, every day, watching." And so an impossible truce was struck at the edge of the Port District. The next day, Kyle arrived exactly at 5 p.m., Liam securely in his arms, wrapped less tightly this time. Kyle was impeccably dressed, but the exhaustion was carved deeper into the shadows under his eyes. Maya was ready. She had set up a small folding chair outside the truck, facing away from the noise of the docks, towards the sunset over the water. She cooked a simple chicken and vegetable stew, making sure the aroma was gentle, not overpowering. Kale sat with Liam, watching as Maya served the boy. Liam ate slowly, but steadily, occasionally looking up at Maya with a fleeting, almost imperceptible smile. Kale watched Maya more than he watched his son. He watched the way her hands moved, strong, careful, never hurried. He watched the way she spoke to Liam, not with pity, but with a quiet respect, telling him stories about the ingredients, about the earth and the sun that grew them. "You're not afraid of me," Kyle stated one evening, his voice flat. He was leaning against the cold metal of the truck, maintaining a calculated distance. Maya kept chopping vegetables. "Why should I be? You're just a desperate father." "I run this city's underbelly, Maya. I have killed men." Maya paused her knife, looking him dead in the eye. "And I have seen children die from hunger and neglect, Kale. Which monster is worse? I choose to look at the man who saved Liam. You are many things, but to him you are safety. Don't ruin that with your pride." Her words stripped his armor again. He felt exposed, vulnerable, standing there in his $5,000 coat, being judged by a woman in a flour-dusted apron. Over the next few weeks, a fragile routine formed. Liam began to speak a few words, first to Maya, pointing to a tomato or a slice of bread, then softly to Kyle, asking for a blanket or a toy. The boy was healing, pulled back from the brink by simplicity and care. But the routine was not without tension. Kyle's empire, like any criminal organization, thrived on predictability. His presence at the food truck at the same time every day was a massive, neon-lit weakness. One rainy evening, a sleek black sedan pulled up, not one of Kael's. A man stepped out, Salvatore Ricci, a rival who controlled the northern warehouses, a man who saw Kael's vulnerability and smelled opportunity. "Donovan," Ricci drawled, ignoring Kael's lethal glare and looking straight at Maya. "Didn't know the ghost had a favorite diner, or a family." Kael moved with the speed of a striking viper, placing his large body between Ricci and the truck. His voice dropped to the quiet level of pure death. "This is a private area, Sal. Leave." Ricci smirked, but his eyes were calculating. "Just checking on my new business opportunity. The little chef. She's selling a valuable commodity. Your weakness. Maybe I should buy her out." Before Kael could reach for the weapon he always carried, Maya stepped out of the truck, wiping her hands on her apron. She didn't look afraid. She looked annoyed. "I'm sorry, sir," Maya said to Ricci with a professional tone. "We're out of respect tonight, and my lease states no aggressive soliciting. You're blocking traffic. I suggest you move your very expensive vehicle before I call the Port Authority." Ricci stared, dumbfounded by the sheer domestic audacity. Kael was equally shocked. Ricci finally laughed. A short, nasty sound. "A lion guarded by a lamb. Interesting, Donovan. Very interesting." He got back in his car, but the damage was done. Maya's intervention had saved a bloodbath, but it had painted a massive target on her back. Kael knew the game. Ricci now saw Maya as the key to Kael's defeat. The incident with Ricci shattered the fragile peace. Kael's vigilance intensified tenfold. His men were everywhere, hidden in plain sight. Yet Kael felt a deepening sense of paranoia. He couldn't risk Maya. He had to end the routine. That night, after Liam had fallen asleep in his temporary bed in the warehouse, Kael cornered Maya as she was cleaning her truck. "It ends, Maya," Kael announced, his voice hard, trying to rebuild the walls she had so easily breached. "Ricci knows about you. Your safety is compromised. I'll have Liam's meals delivered. I'll quadruple your payment. But you stay away from the docks." Maya put down her sponge, her expression one of weary resignation, not fear. "You think money can buy back a child's trust, Kael? You don't get it. Liam doesn't just eat the food. He eats the safety in this truck. He eats the belief that not all people are monsters. You take him away, he goes back to the blanket." "I am protecting you!" Kael roared, stepping closer, his imposing presence filling the small space. "By turning me into a commodity? By throwing money at a problem that requires a soul?" Maya challenged, refusing to back down. She was the calm center to his hurricane. "You talk about protection, but you're just afraid of feeling something that can be taken away." The accuracy of her statement hit Kael with staggering force. He was terrified. He had lost his wife, Mia, years ago, a quiet, kind woman whose death had hardened him into the ghost. He couldn't bear to see that soft light extinguished again, especially if it was his fault. He moved until he was inches from her, the raw desire to protect her fighting with the brutal necessity of pushing her away. "I can't lose you too," he whispered, the admission of loss twisting his features. Maya reached up, her small, flour-dusted hand resting tentatively on his massive, unshaven jaw. "Then don't lose me. Your ghost. Use your mind, not your fists. If you want safety, you build it, Kael. You don't hide." The touch was electric, a jolt of warmth that spread through his cold, lonely existence. He had spent years in the darkness, and she was the first person to touch him without asking for anything, without fear. Kale leaned in, his lips finding hers, a desperate, raw kiss that tasted of tomato soup and unspoken grief. He pulled back, his eyes searching hers. I need more than a chef, Maya. I need a reason to live outside the shadows. And I need a reason to believe the shadows can be tamed. Maya replied, her voice shaky but determined. Their truce changed. It became a volatile partnership. Kyle began spending more time at the truck, ostensibly watching over Liam, but truly watching Maya. He started sharing his world, not the details of his crimes, but the endless, exhausting burden of managing the darkness. Maya, in turn, taught him the language of softness, how to talk to Liam about the colors of the food, how to read a bedtime story without sounding like a man giving orders. But the peace was a lie. Richie was planning a move. One evening, Kyle received a coded message. Richie was planning a major shipment through a hidden warehouse 2 blocks from Maya's truck. It was the perfect opportunity for Kyle to eliminate the threat once and for all. He had a choice. He could stay with Liam and Maya, upholding his new life, or he could be the ghost, ensuring their safety through violence. He chose the latter, knowing the choice would cost him. Kyle kissed Liam goodbye, a deep, silent promise of return. He looked at Maya, who was kneading dough for a fresh batch of bread, her expression calm. I have to go, Kale stated. The ghost fully resurfaced, cold and efficient. Richie is making his move. I need to finish this tonight. My men will stay here. Don't leave the truck. Don't open the door for anyone. Maya walked around the counter, taking his face in her hands. Kyle, be the father when you come back. Don't let the ghost consume you completely. He nodded, a fleeting smile, a ghost of a smile, crossing his lips. He slipped out, meeting his men in the shadows. The confrontation was brutal, swift, and clean. Kyle didn't just stop the shipment. He dismantled Richie's network, sending a bloody, uncompromising message to every rival on the coast. The ghost was back, and he was more lethal than ever, because now he had something to lose. He returned to the food truck at 3 a.m. covered in grime and dried blood, exhausted but victorious. He walked past his guards, who immediately snapped to attention, their faces grim. But as he approached the truck, he noticed something was wrong. The light was on, the door was slightly ajar, and Liam's blanket was gone from his chair. A cold, paralyzing terror, a feeling far worse than fear of death, seized Kale. He roared, shoving the door open. The truck was empty. The stove was cold. There was a note pinned to the counter, written in Maya's flowing hand. Kyle, I know you were coming back. I left you a message that Liam needs to see. He needs to see you choose. Come find us. The first time you met me, I was making food for the homeless kids at the old lighthouse. You know, the place where the city meets the ocean. Liam is safe, but you need to earn your way back into his heart. Come clean, Kale. Come as a father. Kale swore, a raw, desperate sound. Maya hadn't run. She had challenged him. She had taken his son to the one place in his territory that was completely free of his influence. The one beacon of light he had always avoided. The old lighthouse, a crumbling landmark used by the local community as a makeshift shelter and gathering point. Kyle ordered his men to hold position, dismissing them all. This was not a raid. It was a pilgrimage. He stripped off his blood-stained coat and shirt, splashing cold water on his face until he looked less like a killer and more like a man. He drove his own truck, alone, to the lighthouse. He found them sitting on the stone steps overlooking the dark, quiet ocean. Liam was awake, nestled into Maya's side, eating a piece of her freshly baked bread. Liam looked up, his eyes wide, seeing Kyle stripped bare. No coat, no guards, just a man with the weight of the world on his shoulders. Kyle walked slowly, dropping to his knees before them. "I'm back, Liam. I'm sorry. I had to make sure the monsters were gone forever." Liam stared at his hands, then at Kale's. "Did you kill them, Papa?" Kale looked at Maya, who nodded imperceptibly. "Tell him the truth." "Yes, Liam," Kale said, his voice quiet. "I finished the fight so you wouldn't have to live in fear. It was my job to protect you. But I hate that job. I want a new one. I want to be your full-time papa." Liam's small, fragile hand reached out and touched the bruise on Kale's cheek. "Are you hurt, Papa?" Kale shook his head. "Only in my heart. But you can fix that." Liam smiled, a real radiant smile that Kale had waited a lifetime to see. "I saved you food, Papa. Maya made borscht. It's warm." Kale looked at Maya, whose eyes were shining with tears. She had given him the gift of redemption, the chance to be seen not as the ghost, but as a man capable of love. The warmth of the borscht settled in Kyle's stomach, a comforting heat that melted the coldness he had carried for years. It was the best thing he had ever tasted, tasting of beetroot, dill, and unconditional acceptance. "I need you to marry me, Maya Lou," Kale said abruptly, setting the empty bowl down. Maya laughed, a genuine, startled sound that echoed lightly across the water. "You're still giving orders, Kale Donovan. And you're asking a chef to marry you on a cold lighthouse step after a gang war." "It's the only way," Kale insisted, ignoring the absurdity. "You need the protection of my name, the legitimacy of my family structure. And I need the anchor you bring. Liam needs his mother." "I am not your security system, Kale," Maya said, her smile fading as she became serious. "I am your partner. If I marry you, you quit. You liquidate the illegal assets. You focus on the legitimate shipping business. You become the king of the port, yes, but a king of light, not shadow. Can you do that?" Kyle looked at the vast, dark ocean that had defined his life, then at the lighthouse, the symbol of hope that Maya represented. He looked at Liam, who was fast asleep, his small hand tucked into Kyle's massive one. "I will," Kyle promised, the commitment solid, unshakable. "I swear it on Liam's life." "Then yes, Kale Donovan," Maya whispered, tears tracing clean paths through the dust on her cheeks. "Yes, I will marry you, and we will build a new territory, our family." He pulled her into a fierce, bassoon, tender embrace, Liam safe between them. They were an impossible tableau. The gang leader, the street chef, and the healed boy, building a future on the ruins of the past. 3 years later, the Port District was still Kyle's territory, but it operated differently. The legitimate shipping business flourished, providing real jobs, real security. The Tidebound still existed, but they were a silent security detail, focused on protecting the community, not exploiting it. Kale had traded his black trench coat for bespoke suits, though his gray eyes still held the warning of the ghost. Maya's comfort kitchen was no longer a food truck. It was the lighthouse kitchen, a thriving community center and restaurant near the old landmark, providing job training and food security for the entire neighborhood. Maya was the heart of the district, her warmth a tangible force for good. Kyle watched from the window of the restaurant as Maya wiped the face of their daughter, Isla, a beautiful, boisterous toddler. Liam, now 10, stood beside his younger sister, a confident, happy boy who laughed freely and helped his mother clean vegetables. Kyle walked over, wrapping his arms around Maya's waist. "Still waiting for the chaos, Ghost?" Maya murmured, leaning back into his strength. "The chaos is internal now," Kale admitted, resting his chin on her shoulder. "Trying to keep up with a 10-year-old and a baby girl. It's the most terrifying thing I've ever faced." "But you're eating," Maya teased. "And you're safe. We're safe." That was the promise. Kyle turned her, kissing her deeply, the taste of her love, her commitment, still the purest thing he knew. "You saved us, Chef. You fed us life when we were starving." Liam ran over, grabbing his father's hand. "Papa, look. Isla wants my bread. She needs to eat the magic bread." Kyle looked at his son, seeing only light and promise. He picked up his daughter, his beautiful, impossible family. He was still a king, but his crown was made of warmth, not fear. He was Cale Donovan, the reformed gang leader, eternally saved by the love in a food truck.